associate today with the help of others. So regardless of whether what race or religion or creed or sexual orientation or gender identity you come with, you're welcome here. It's a very welcoming church. We're here to discover what's true and good and wise and lovely and holy, and to see if we can be courageous enough to put those things out in the world. So we're honored that you've chosen us to be here for this morning, and if you're a guest, particularly if you're from this row in here or one of the guests, you don't have to give to the collection. There's always a lot going on. We're going to hear a quick announcement from our board, who's in aprons. Come on up and tell us all about breakfast.
Can you hear me, Sadara?
Yeah.
We are your governing board. You were elected. We're trying to help you all this together, right? And we are entertaining you on December 29th, next Sunday, with a pancake breakfast.
Second annual.
And you have a special kind of pancake.
From Southern Roots, I'm bringing sweet potato pancakes.
And you have special pancakes. I love it.
Making waffles specifically gluten-free, and they were well received last year, even by people who weren't gluten-free.
Great cheer, great service.
Yeah.
So everybody forgot the tips.
I know. So 10 to 12 next Sunday. Hope you all come over in Parish Hall. In Parish Hall.
And there'll be live music.
No, yes, it will be live music too. Yes.
This will be instead of a service.
Instead of a service, yes.
It's our
We
service.
are
too.
serving you. That's our service.
Yes. Thank you. And the governing board is a lot of fun. I should just like to say that. Enjoy it.
We'll ostracize the gluten people to the corner of the room. We do that. Christmas Eve, 7 o'clock here. That's 2 days from now. Choir meeting at 5:30. There's also today a Blue Christmas service at the Episcopal Church, which is just right over there, down by the school. And that's a little bit more of a somber service for people who feel blue at Christmas, right? And that's at 5 o'clock today. And there's also a calendar day coming up, like a reboot of sort of looking at what we want to do and build into our lives. Signs on the yard and marketing campaigns and programs and that kind of stuff. So we gather twice a year to sort of look at what we're doing and what we're bringing to the community and to ourselves for congregation. So we'll save a little time after church on the 12th when I'm back there then. So that is that, and now it's time for me to ring the gong. So Olga can.
Richard, I'm on.
So beautiful, right? In honor of the ancients that celebrate the time of the longest night, we observe that lighting the flaming chalice holds the elements of 4 directions: air, earth, fire, water; lamp, oil for earth; air that feeds the flame itself, and then the chalice, which is essentially a cup designed to hold the symbol of water. We light our shared faith in light of this loving community, and the light that guides us forward, and hope and joy. I'm going to invite Lester, who's going to read our Advent, lighting of the Advent wreath piece for Advent, and I will light.
This morning makes the 4th Sunday in the season of Advent. Each week until Christmas, we have been lighting a new candle on the Advent wreath. Symbols of hope, peace, joy, and love. As the season reaches its completion, we prepare for a new life to dawn. Our hearts soften and our arms open to embrace its brightness. This morning, we light the 4th candle. We light this candle as a reminder that there is no greater power in the world than love. Through this community, we can become a blessing to one another. Our love is magnified and our lives are changed. We can hardly wait any longer for the wonder of love to be revealed. May we risk enough to become vulnerable and welcome holy tenderness.
Today, remember that Earth's people across time, if they celebrate anything, if they marked anything, it's the sun. In fact, if you wanted to pick one universal thing we worship on the top of all the list of any gods or goddesses, without question, it's the sun. I'm not going out on a limb to say it's the most obvious object of veneration on Earth, right? We feel its power all the time. We feel when it waxes and when it wanes. We feel its lack, we mourn its departure. Like, we really literally spend a lot of time thinking about it, and our generation less than anyone. So in the light of that, or lack of the light of that this time of year, let's pause for a minute and just remember that, with all due respect to the Christ child and the courageous Maccabees of Hanukkah and all the other light-related holidays, the primary human holiday of this season is solstice. In the earliest days of human consciousness, if you think back, and we'll try to trace back a little bit later on, it must have been a deep interest of what the son was gonna do next, right? We know now, we didn't then. Now, with most of us not being farmers and migrant hunters, personally invested in where the large game is gonna go, or particularly whether we're gonna survive the cold, most of us. How do we do solstice in modern times? And we're gonna spend today talking about that. So, the punishment of that sermon is still a long way away, and I encourage everyone to open up their gray hymnals to number 55, Dark of the Moon. Start time of prayer and hello? Hello? There we are. I invite you to just find a nice still spot. For me, I like the image of dropping down a rope ladder into like the well of my heart or my soul. Just listen. I invite us to a prayerful imagination to step back to a time a little more than 5,000 years ago, to sometime around 3200 BCE. I want you to imagine all of us gathered in the ancient forest near the Boyne River on the island that will come to be called Ireland. The Celts, the Celts as they have been called, have not yet even arrived yet. And the neighboring country of England has not yet built its Stonehenge. It's the time in more distant lands, 5,000 years ago, the pyramids of Egypt have yet to be built. The Great Wall is not even a wooden fence, and Machu Picchu is still just a very regular rocky outcropping in the Andes. The people, the us who are building what will in our time be called Newgrange, have no writing system, so we don't know their thoughts. We would stand towering over these short and short-lived people with a life expectancy of about 34 years. And yet engaged in a building project, it would be estimated to take 80 years to complete. The grandchildren, even some great-grandchildren of the people who started this monument, will finish it. Oddly, enough historians believe that in 1 or 2 lifespans after the completion of Newgrange, it was abandoned. Nobody knows why it was abandoned. Nobody knows why it was built. There is so much we don't understand. The more modest archaeologists look us in the eye and admit that it's a mystery why the ancients of ours even started such a project. It remains a mystery of how the huge curbstones, stones literally as big as SUVs, were moved by a Stone Age people from their quarries more than 50 miles away over uneven terrain through forests and finally up this little hill. Some people have ideas about how they did it. Some people think aliens were involved. What we do believe is that smaller stones that complete the project were brought from even further away. What was the purpose of the final temple, like mound on top of what covers more than an acre? Nobody really knows. What kept a society engaged in a public works project of this scale when they had so little comforts and technology? No one knows. While we stand here imagining watching the ancient people doing backbreaking labor, sadly, we can't bridge the language and history divide to ask, what is this all about? On the winter solstice 5 millennia ago, the mound was finally completed. We might find ourselves at the base of the hill and gathered around us what we might imagine, don't really know, would be the chieftains and shamans and matriarchs and midwives of this society dancing in the dark of night, chanting as they process up the hill to the entrance of this mound. We might imagine ourselves falling in behind them, walking down a dark, small passage into the heart of the mound, to the inner chamber and waiting with them in silence. Outside, unseen by those of us entombed in the darkness of earth, the sky begins to lighten. Just as the sun nears the lip of the horizon, repeating a ritual pattern that comes from a lifetime of being attuned to the natural cycles, a matriarch starts to chant. We might speculate to invoke the sun. Then suddenly, as if magically, a shaft of sunlight dispenses the darkness in this earthen, acre-wide tomb. It's ablaze for less than 20 minutes before the angle of the sun is again too great and New Grange Mound falls into darkness once again. Let's just take a moment of silence and be in that right, human, creative, religious Alice. Amen. It is a time for people to come forward now with joys and concerns and come stand here and drop a stone in there and tell us what's on your heart or your mind.
I'm Kathleen. Last Sunday I wasn't with you. I was with Darcy Keeler at Perry Home Companion at Fitzgerald Theater in Minneapolis. 50 years of that, if any of you like the show, I think frankly it's kind of passed my way. But it was charming. But he encouraged us to suspend our concerns for Libya, Syria, any Afghanistan, and just enjoy the holiday season. And I would like to reject that notion that as we all turn our faces to the light of hope, that we also include them actively in whatever way that we can. And I went out to celebrate my niece getting engaged and just celebrating that love. So that was really a nice time. You know, it's at my home this year. I am hosting. If anybody needs a place to go, there's always room at the table.
I'm Corey and I'm dropping a stone for my sister Maddie, who has.
The teacher said it was physically impossible for a whale to swallow a human because even though it was a very large animal, its throat was very small indeed. The little girl stated, well, that can't be true. Jonah was swallowed by a whale. Hello. Teacher was a little irritated. Who wants that kind of girl in their class? The teacher reiterated that a whale could not swallow a human. It was physically impossible. The little girl said, well, when I get to heaven, I'm going to ask Jonah what happened. The teacher asked, but little girl, what if Jonah went to hell? Little girl replied, well, you're going to ask him, right?
We always split the plate, and today's split plate goes to Ansar of Worcester, who serves refugees and the underprivileged in the Worcester community. So be grateful for that. And now our offertory music. At the end, I felt like you were just kind of showing off. Stephanie Noble says, do not be afraid of the darkness.
Dark is the rich, fertile earth that cradles the seed, nourishing growth. Dark is the soft night that cradles us to rest. She says, only in darkness can stars shine across the vastness of space. Only in darkness is the moon's dance so clear. There is mystery woven in the dark hours. There is magic in the darkness. Do not be afraid. We are born of this magic. It fills our dreams that root, unravel, and reweave themselves in the shelter of the deep, dark night. The dark has its own hue, its own resonance, its own breath. It fills our soul. I think we all know that's true. It fills our soul not with despair, but with promise. Dark is the gestation of our deep and knowing self. Dark is the cave where we rest and renew our soul. We are born of the darkness, and each night we return to its deep, moist womb of the beginning. Do not be afraid of the darkness, for in the depth of that darkness comes the first glimpse of our own light, the pure inner light of love and knowing as it glows and grows. The darkness recedes as we shed our light, we shed our fear, and revel in the wonder of all that is revealed. So, do not rush the coming of the sun. Do not crave the lengthening of the day. Celebrate the darkness, here and now, a time of richness, a time of joy. I think you're jumping ahead, but no, you're right. I screwed this up. Good, yeah. Right.
The composer, Catherine Lucas, says this about this piece. The thread of life and its potential, though elusive, continues through the stillness of winter, after the period of dying and loss during the autumn. What is potential? What is hidden? How much of our own potential are we hiding? Addressing the stranger is confronting the place where we feel insecure, the unknown, yet it is the place for new growth. It's a risk, and trust is necessary to unfold our potential to the outside world. Within the darkness, we are not alone. The rhythms of life accompany us. When all is at its most still, the dream is there. And if we can bring ourselves to whisper the name of our dreaming, we are allowing the new in, creating a space in the fullness for the spring to come.
I love buffets. One of my oldest friends, who's a bit of a judgmental foodie, jokes that he's going to have "loved a buffet" put on my tombstone. Snooty as he can be, he's right. I do love a buffet. And being a frugal person who's able to eat a lot, and also being more impatient than I am lazy, buffets are generally my favorite kind of restaurants. I know all these foodies out here hate me all of a sudden. It's okay. Although COVID has taken millions of lives and isolated us and cost people their jobs and their savings, I've suffered the very first world problem of having buffets largely taken out of existence. I only tell you this to set up the silly parallel that when we talk about the solstice, unlike most other religious days, we usually understand there's an endless kind of buffet of ways marking the impact of the sun has on us, and generally with very little jealousy about how to do it right. I love that about the solstice. There's unquestionably more cultures and customs dedicated to the solstice than any other holiday. It is, as Reverend David Tadataski Morris says, in culture after culture, we follow the urging of the season to create an almost primal panorama of winter ceremonies where light is honored. Fancy words, but we do this all over. Evidence of solstice ceremonies go back roughly 30,000 years. It's a long time. Charting the sun's path among the oldest religious experiences of all time. 30,000 years is 20,000 years before we ever domesticated an animal, planted a row of crops, or lived in communities that weren't consistently on the move over 120 people. Historically, that means that not too long after the same time, it's believed that our ancestors started ritually burying the dead with little ornaments and things that showed that they weren't just animals. We were following the zenith and nadir, the ebb and flow of the sun's path. It is as if at this time of year in the Northern Hemisphere, something inside of us calls us to the light, right, as it disappears. Although the winter solstice is set at the darkest and nearly the coldest time of the year, interestingly enough, it's a time of revelry historically. It's almost a contrast. I had to read this, twice as I read it over. It's often acted as the last good party of the year. Let's remember, it follows a time not too longer after the time when in the communities, they would kill the cattle that they didn't think would survive the winter. And it's about at the shortest time of the year here in December when quite a bit of wine and beer made from harvested plants were finally fermented enough to be ready for drinking. So, party down. Although these celebrations were haunted by the idea, really the fear that being cold and hungry was right around the corner, as it turns out, ironically, the few sunny days of early spring, not the deepest winter months, came to ominously be known as the famine months. I want you to experience this as a buffet of the rituals and the stories that mark the darkest days of the year with stories of wonder and hope. I'm going to go around the world here a little bit. In Japan, the sun goddess Amaterasu emerges from a cave. The first stop on that global buffet begins there, where the sun rises, or where we claim it rises, mostly historically. And people in Japan take hot baths with grapefruit floating around a little, not grapefruit, but yazu, which are like this fruit that they take baths with. And in Japan, it's considered to be the closest time of death. So people would warm their bodies and sit with fruit in the tub to ward off bad vibes and to pray for safety and health. In China, on and around the winter solstice, people observe a holiday ritual that will be familiar to everyone gathering with loved ones, that they eat too much. And their favorite treat at these is dongzai, which is a sticky rice ball. And they're made together in families, and the circle has the balls have a little bit of a yin-yang connection to them. And the idea is about the idea that that the making of the food, which is almost universal, is part of the process of eating that food at this time of year. In Iran, the winter solstice eve is called Yalda. It means new birth, and Iranians are thinking about the night of the longest day, and to dispel the melancholy that can be at this time of year, fruits commonly eaten. In Poland and Slavic countries, this holiday called Kolyada was celebrated, also called Obzin. For people in parts of Eastern Europe, winter solstice was filled with people dressed like animals around the village. Often as a parade, a cloaked person with a goat head, and then there was a person with would parade around the town. It's like kind of a Slavic drama. And they would have a solar system lit by a candle that they would carry around with them. The German culture in the solstice time fell under the recognizable name of Yule. These Northern European pagans, whom we inherit a lot of the season's rituals, burned a Yule log and sacrificed a Yule pig often. We get from the Germans the Christmas tree, right? An image of Father Christmas riding on a Yule goat will appear for you. In Sweden, St. Lucia's Day marks the beginning of Christmas celebrations. It's the tradition where around this time of year, the eldest daughter of a family traditionally dressed in a white robe and wearing an evergreen crown, often with candles on it. It's designed to bring hope and joy to the darkest time of the year. St. Lucia was a martyr in the 4th century, a classic blend of Christian and indigenous holidays. In earlier centuries, the Norse celebrated the winter solstice with large bonfires designed to scare off evil spirits and to perhaps alter the course of the sun symbolically. After converting to Christianity sometime around 1000, the North incorporated St. Lucia into these festivals. In northern Germany and Scandinavia, the winter solstice was also a time of celebration for Hertha, the Norse goddess of light. In Scotland, Hogmanay, probably mispronounced, is what Scots call New Year's Eve, but it also has solstice connections, and it's this unique time of year celebrated by the Vikings. It was part of their solstice ceremonies. In England, Stonehenge is tied to the solstice. The sun sets amidst these three great stones known as the Tritheon in Stonehenge. Hogueras in Spain is celebrated. It's the night of bonfires, and the Spanish candles of Christmas are sort of swapped out for blazes in which people take turns jumping over the fire, an act of good luck. Good agility, I suppose. If they fail, though, they have a second chance in the summer where they do the same kind of ritual. In Guatemala, where Christians celebrate St. Thomas Day each December 21st, Mayans take the celebration literally to a whole new level, pardon the pun. 50 feet off the ground, a pole is raised, and with long ropes tied to their feet, they leap from the pinnacle of this flying pole, and they do what's kind of flying pole dance. They do this to honor the sun god, whose worship predated the arrival of Christianity. Just a little further south and concluding our tour are the Incas, who Rami in Peru celebrates the honor of the god Enid. And there's parades and costumes and fanfare. All around the globe, people have been oriented to the sun for obvious reasons. And the word solstice itself has roots in sol, meaning sun, of course, right? But sistre, meaning to stand still. So technically, solstice isn't about the motion, it's about that moment. So when the sun is at its weakest and emerging right now, and when it's at its strength in the summer in June, the fact that the motion seems to stand still. So solstice is really about the moment, if you can catch it, where it going up and coming down causes a pause. We, of course, know that those who invented solstice did not know that the sun didn't really rise in the east as much as we're on the ball of a planet. So solstice is a human perspective issue, really the other way around, right? It's our perspective on the sun that's honored when you pause and think about it. We, of course, also know now in a way that those invented solstice did not experience it. We know the seasons exist because the sun and the earth the earth is tilted a little bit. Indigenous people knew much more than we thought that they did. But we know now in a way they may not have, that our sun is only one of trillions of others, trillions. All that makes solstice not as much a cosmic event, like an explosion of a supernova, as much as it is an experience of us relating to the sun. It's a celebration of our perspective when you think about it, really, right? You're sitting on this spinning globe in this one particular spot. So solstice happens to you and us together in a much larger cosmos. Ironically, we all, though, no longer wonder about whether the sun, how it might behave. It's interesting that we do wonder about the sun and its collective impact on us now, and if the power of the sun is going to be too much. Today, people of conscience are not too worried about the fact of where the sun's going to go, as much as we worry about the hurricanes swirling on our flat screen TVs. And is it a weird flip to worry about our behavior's impact on the impact of the sun on us? When we think about how we as a species incorporate a more earthly embodied sense of where we are, which I think about a lot, it's clear that we need a new planet-focused religion, a new modern religion with accompanying rituals that take us beyond imaginatively charting the journey of the sun, worthy on its own. It's clear from history that, like the sun, religious ideas come and go, they ebb, they flow, they change. We're worshiping Zeus in one time, we're worshiping the jungle god in a different place on the earth at different times. I love that stopping to religiously look and spiritually concern ourselves to the point of worrying about the sun links us to our distant ancestors and to this moment. It might be a bold thing to say, but it makes doing anything else feel like a religious fad. While I've taken us to a discussion about religion, it's worth noting that the spiritual trend we are in, perhaps at the end of, but not through, is of course that of all the world religions born of human interaction of civilizations. All the world's present religious traditions, all those large faiths have brought us a morality connected mostly to how we relate to one another when you stop and think about it. Here's the take-home family phrase to get the holiday dinner conversation really cooking. Ready? Here goes. My minister said that any religion not primarily related to the sun, the weather, and the climate's impact on us might just be a fad. Now, that nutty minister of yours wouldn't go so far as saying love thy neighbor or the Buddhist Eightfold Path is a fad, but it's a good line. It'll stir up dinner conversation. And now that we do know how things work a little bit better and why things happen, we have again religiously concerned ourselves with the environment. That will change in our lifetimes and the lifetimes of those who are younger. Solstice is important because it reminds us how interconnected we are with our environment, something we're very prone to forget. And in doing so, how dangerously uninterconnected to nature the waves of religious tradition that have shaped us recently have been. We all know now the buffet of solstice rituals and stories might strike us as archaic. You could see it that way. They also provide for us a perspective and a reminder that we live on a spinning planet dependent on a mother star. Solstice reminds us that biology rules and how easy it is to religiously overlook that. If we're going to save the planet to be a useful place for billions of people to live on, we're going to need religious holidays that draw our attention back to earthly natural phenomena. I believe that if we fail to know our full religious history, including that of solstice, we're likely to miss that we are a species are on a journey. And we hold on to ideas that don't pull us and lead us and transform us. We are going to get stuck in our religious spot, and it's going to cost us the future. Solstice and a little preachy ecology there. Amen. In our teal hymnal, we're going to sing "O Brother Sun" 1066 in our teal hymnals, 1066.
These are our closing words for today. It's a winter solstice reflection, and it's written by Gregory Jones. On this, yesterday, the longest night of the year, we are warmed by the certain knowledge that tomorrow will become lighter than today, as it has for eons, for billions of years. The coming of light brings life. May we all be awed by the great miracles of light and life, and faithfully nurture the mystery and that magic of wonder. Amen.
Thank you, Olga. Come join us for coffee and refreshments next door.